There are currently over 1,000 named characters in One Piece, and today I'll rank the 20 strongest ones. This includes everything from legendary pirates and marines all the way to the mythical monsters and even devils. So let's start with 𝐾𝐫𝐫𝐲'𝐬. The 𝐾𝐫𝐫𝐲'𝐬, or the Five Elders, have the highest authority within the world government and report directly to Imu. They've ruled for decades, possibly since the Void Century, and it's pretty much confirmed that they are immortal. As shown in the recent chapters, each of the 𝐾𝐫𝐫𝐲'𝐬 has their own devil-like power, and they transform into some pretty unique monsters based on Japanese mythology. The only time we've seen these guys in action was during Egghead, when they tanked all sorts of attacks from Luffy and Bonnie without even flinching. They can regenerate any wound instantly, which makes them pretty much impossible to kill. The fact that Imu sent them into combat rather than the admirals shows their power is likely above theirs. Nosjuro, for example, almost cut down most of Egghead Island with just a casual swipe. It's clear that 𝐾𝐫𝐫𝐲'𝐬 are a top-tier threat. However, the main reason they aren't ranked higher on this list is simply because they rely on their regeneration too much and don't seem to be that powerful without it. But can you believe that there are still 19 characters in One Piece stronger than these guys? Sounds crazy, but it's true. And one of them is Blackbeard. Despite looking dumb, Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard, is kind of the secret mastermind of One Piece. He is definitely the most unpredictable emperor of the current generation, and nobody really knows what he's planning. He's the son of the legendary Rox D. Xebec, one of the strongest and most influential figures in the One Piece world. After Rox was defeated during God Valley, Teach somehow ended up joining the Whitebeard pirates when he came of age. Later on, he killed one of his fellow crewmates in order to steal a rare devil fruit and left, forming his own crew. Eventually, during the Marineford War, he managed to kill his former captain and even steal his devil fruit in the process. This made Blackbeard the only character in the story to wield the powers of 2 devil fruits. With the Yami Yami no Mi, he can nullify other devil fruit powers and draw enemies in with a gravitational force. On the other hand, with the Gura Gura no Mi, he can create world-shattering quakes that can keep even the likes of Akainu in check. Although we don't know how he did it, he was the one who gave Shanks that nasty scar on his face. And if he was able to do that to Shanks, I think it's safe to say that he is one of the top-tier characters. Besides this, he also defeated Law and his crew relatively easily, which is another great feat. For some reason, it seems that Oda is still intentionally keeping Blackbeard's true power hidden, rarely showing him in action, and mostly keeping his feats off screen. So until we directly see what this guy is capable of, I think that 19th place on the list fits him perfectly. There are still 18 insanely strong characters left to cover, but before we get to those, I want to tell you guys about 𝐿, the sponsor of today's video. If you've been on Crunchyroll recently, you've probably noticed some familiar Star Rail elements around. That's because Star Rail and Crunchyroll have officially partnered to give you guys some awesome rewards. It's super simple. Open the Crunchyroll app, go to the Star Rail crossover zone, and click Link Account. There are also rewards for participating, like a 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Mega Fan. While here, you should definitely check out Hoyo Fair and promotional videos for Star Rail's new version. There's also a new character coming to Star Rail called Serene, and they really outdid themselves with this one. With her pink hair and sky-themed outfit, she looks like she came straight from a Crunchyroll anime. You can also check out her promo video on Crunchyroll to learn more about her personality and role in the main story. But if you don't just want to watch, you can download Star Rail and fight alongside her directly in the game to unlock more exclusive storylines. Star Rail is an anime-styled turn-based RPG set in space, and playing it pretty much feels like watching a high-quality anime. What are you waiting for? Click my link in the description to download Honkai Star Rail now! And also, you can click the event links to join this collaboration and get multiple rewards on both sides. Oden. Kozuki Oden was a legendary samurai of Wano and one of the few people to sail with both Whitebeard and Roger pirates. Although he was an official heir to the Wano country, his wild nature led him to the seas instead. He craved adventure, which eventually led to him joining Roger's crew and even reaching Laugh Tale with him. After learning the true history of the world, he returned to Wano, only to realize that his country had been taken over by Kaido and Orochi. Oden's feats are some of the most impressive in the series. He wielded the twin blades Enma and Ame no Habakuri with devastating power, and even left Kaido with PTSD after giving him a lifelong scar. He also fought Whitebeard to a standstill upon their first meeting, showing monstrous endurance and strength. Even Roger was pretty interested in him when they first met, as the guy easily survived his Divine Departure attack, which was usually powerful enough to defeat most people instantly. With all of this, it's safe to say Odin was easily an Emperor level fighter. Sure, he lacked the Devil Fruit powers, but he made up for it with hockey mastery and expert level swordsmanship. But Odin isn't the only guy to travel with Roger who ended up on this list. 𝐿𝐵𝐴𝐵. 𝐵𝐵 was a legendary pirate back in the day and was the Pirate King's left-hand man. As with many pirates from the previous era, very little is known about 𝐵𝐵's backstory. All we know is that he was one of his crew's main fighters, along with 𝐸'lli. It is said that he was responsible for painting an entire mountain red after cutting down 100 pirates who were after his captain's head. After Roger's death, however, he disappeared from history, with only a few brief appearances in flashbacks. During that time, he was too busy raising a child with his giant wife. Although his feats are mostly off-screen, his rank alone is enough for us to judge his strength. Being a senior officer on the only crew ever to reach Laugh-Tale implies mastery of hockey and combat ability comparable to the Emperor's. If 𝐸'lli was strong enough to fight a God's Knight like St. Somers and an admiral in his old age, then 𝐵𝐵 in his prime was likely a monster as well. He literally had Somers sweating when they met years later, and he easily countered and evaded most of Luffy and Zoro's attacks. 𝐵𝐵 seemingly also knows a way to defeat immortal beings, which he recently showed in the manga. Honestly, there's just so much about this guy we don't know yet, and with the 𝐿𝐵𝐴𝐵 arc still going strong, I'm sure we are going to see his full strength at some point. Until then, 17th place seems fitting for him. And although we don't know what 𝐵𝐵 is capable of yet, we do know very well what this next character can do. Akainu. Sakazuki, better known as Akainu, is the current fleet admiral of the Marines. He follows the absolute justice, which represents the harshest and the most uncompromising way of dealing with enemies. Even back when he was just an admiral, Akainu was already known for his ruthlessness, leading the Buster Call on Ohara and ordering the attack on innocent civilians. His magma fruit is confirmed to be the most offensively strong fruit in the story, allowing Akainu to generate and control magma. With this ability, Akainu was easily able to overpower Ace's flames, and he even burned a hole through Whitebeard's face. At Marineford, he fought Whitebeard's entire crew, survived direct quakes, and still chased after Luffy and Jinbei despite his injuries. His broken Logia abilities and conviction easily make him one of the most dangerous active fighters in the entire One Piece world. He proved that once again when he fought against Aokiji during the time skip. This duel lasted for 10 full days, and at the end of it all, Akainu stood victorious, with Aokiji even losing his leg in the process. Akainu easily ranks above standard admirals like Green Bull or Kizaru, and with everything we saw in the show so far, I think it's safe to say that this guy is easily Emperor level, maybe even beyond. The big bad of the Marines may look unstoppable, but this next character would have totally knocked him out if he were still in his prime. Silver's Rayleigh. The Dark King, Silver's Rayleigh, was Gol D. Rogers' right-hand man and the living embodiment of experience and skill. Even in retirement, he remains one of the most respected and feared men on the seas, with even Blackbeard being too afraid to fight him. Rayleigh's story began when he met a man in a straw hat, asking him for a boat and to join his crew. He then wound up becoming Roger's first mate, helping him navigate and fight through the entire Grand Line all the way until their final voyage together. During that time, he built up a formidable reputation for himself and fought against some of the strongest pirates of that era. He was also one of the very few people who gave a God's Knight a royal beating. After Roger's execution, Rayleigh retired from piracy and became a coding specialist at Sabaody Archipelago, living quietly in his wife's bar. Although we didn't see Rayleigh do much on screen, we've seen enough. He casually stopped Kizaru at Sabaody, deflecting light speed attacks despite being decades past his prime. He then trained Luffy during the time skip, teaching him all 3 forms of hockey and setting the foundation for Luffy's current strength. Even years after his retirement, Rayleigh's bounty is still active. However, he continues to live freely, as the Marines know that fighting him would be costly. Rayleigh's prime strength likely rivaled top-tier Marines and Emperors, and some would even say that he was almost on par with Roger himself. And while Rayleigh stood at the peak of the pirating world, this next character would still give him a tough time if they ever engaged each other. Big Mom. Charlotte Lin-Lin, better known as Big Mom, was easily one of the most terrifying pirates of both the old and current generations. Her enormous size, unnatural physical strength, and terrifying devil fruit abilities made her the cutthroat ruler of Todo Land for decades. As a child, she displayed monstrous power since she was practically a giant compared to the other orphans she lived with. Even at a young age, Lin-Lin was able to destroy entire villages when hungry, and even killed a giant by accident. Big Mom later ate her foster mother, along with the rest of her companions, and accidentally gained the abilities of the soul fruit in the process. During her younger days working as a pirate on Rock's legendary crew, Big Mom was a powerhouse who was easily admiral level. After Rock's defeat, Big Mom built the Charlotte family into the largest pirate family in the world, marrying off her children to create a network of alliances. With her devil fruit, Big Mom can manipulate souls, extract lifespans, and even create living homies like Prometheus, Zeus, and Napoleon. Her skin is nearly impenetrable, her haki is monstrous, and her stamina is unmatched. Yep, she's pretty much got everything. During Wano, Big Mom fought against many different characters, and ultimately, it took the combined efforts of Kid and Law with awakened powers to finally bring her down. Despite her defeat though, Big Mom easily deserves to be on this list. The only thing she lacks is the strategic mind some other characters possess. But even despite that, her monstrous strength is more than enough to earn her the 14th spot. And while Big Mom could easily fight against any character in the story, she'd have a really hard time winning against this one, Sengoku. Sengoku is a Marine veteran and an excellent strategist, who was also a fleet admiral at one point in the story. Even in retirement, his legacy and strength continue to echo throughout the world, with even people like Akainu treating him with respect. During his prime, Sengoku was one of the most feared Marines in the world, along with Garp and Tsuru. We know that he helped defeat Golden Line Shiki with Garp in a battle that destroyed half of Marineford. Even Roger admitted that Sengoku's presence would make his fight against the Marines somewhat interesting. Sengoku's strength comes from both his devil fruit and haki. He ate the Hirohiro Nomi Model Daibutsu, a mythical Zoan fruit that allows him to transform into a giant golden Buddha. In that state, he can generate massive golden shockwaves with his palms, powerful enough to even injure the level 6 prisoners that joined Blackbeard's crew. He is also a confirmed master of all 3 haki types: observation, armament, and conquerors, which is a pretty rare set of skills to have even among high-ranking Marines. Even though we have never seen Prime Sengoku fight someone all out, considering how strong he was even in his old age, this guy must have been an absolute beast. And considering that people were comparing him to Garp back in the day, I think that he deserves a high placement on the list. And while Sengoku seems to have become weaker with age, this next character just kept getting stronger: Kaido. Kaido, aka the strongest creature in the world, was a former emperor and a member of the Rock's pirates. His entire persona revolved around strength and power, and he believed himself to be truly unbeatable. When he was only 10 years old, Kaido became the strongest warrior in his kingdom, with everyone around him being terrified of his power. Throughout his life, Kaido was captured by the Marines and experimented on multiple times. Each time, however, he managed to escape, gaining a reputation for being unkillable. Then, when he was 16, Rocks found him and recruited him to his crew. Cruising around surrounded by the strongest pirates ever, Kaido quickly picked up the menacing skills, cold personality, and incredible haki control. Later on in his life, he decided to build his empire in Wano, forcefully conquering it by defeating Oden. After amassing a huge army of Zoan users, he decided to form an alliance with Big Mom to conquer the world and find the One Piece. He ate the Uo Nomi Model Seryu, a mythical Zoan that lets him transform into a massive blue dragon. In this form, he can generate fire blasts capable of destroying mountains, summon flame clouds to lift entire islands, and shrug off most attacks even from Gear 4 Luffy. As a matter of fact, he one-shot Luffy multiple times before their final battle and even stopped his heart from beating for a short while. He fought through multiple rounds against the 9 Scabbards, the Supernovas, Yamato, and finally Luffy, enduring punishment that would kill almost anyone else while lifting Onigashima with his clouds the entire time. Honestly, this guy was just on a different level compared to anyone else we met until that point in the story. While Kaido represents the peak of the old generation, this next character showed us that the new era is just as terrifying. Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy, the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, is the current face of the new pirate era. He's gone from small-time rookie to an emperor in record time. Unlike some people, Buggy, he earned his title after defeating Kaido, which is something no one else managed to do. Luffy is also the direct inheritor of Joy Boy and Roger's will, which pretty much means that he's the embodiment of freedom in the One Piece world. Throughout his journey, Luffy was gradually getting stronger. He first unlocked Gear 2nd and 3rd during Enies Lobby, which gave him incredible speed and size. He later achieved Gear 4 during Dressrosa, which gave him even more power and allowed him to defeat incredibly strong Doflamingo. And finally, during Wano, Luffy achieved his peak when he rose back from the dead after awakening his Devil Fruit. In his final form, Luffy has cartoon-like powers and can pretty much do whatever he wants. With his new powers, he was able to easily hold his own against people like Admiral Kizaru and even Gorosei. His haki, especially Conqueror's haki, is now advanced enough to coat his attacks, allowing him to damage even Kaido's impenetrable scales without actually touching him. Compared to some of the other weaker names on this list, Luffy now stands above nearly every Admiral and Emperor level opponent. I mean, sure, it took him 5 tries to beat Kaido, and yeah, he got kicked into the Frontier Dome by Kizaru. When Luffy regains his seriousness in his Gear 5 form, he can easily take out any of the characters we mentioned so far. There are still 10 insanely strong characters left to cover, and let's continue with Mihawk. Although a lot of fandom calls this guy Fraud Hook and says that he just paints his blades black, I don't think that's actually true. I mean, you don't get called the greatest swordsman in the world for nothing. Although Mihawk's backstory is not fully revealed, we know that he was once known as a rival of red-haired Shanks, and their legendary duels were famous enough to echo through the Grand Line. However, after Shanks lost his arm, Mihawk stopped fighting him, showing off just how serious he takes his swordsmanship. Interestingly, Mihawk is one of the rare characters in One Piece who traveled alone for most of his life. The man literally sails the Grand Line on a small raft. Mihawk's main weapon is a black blade, Yoru, one of the 12 supreme grade swords, and with it, he can defeat pretty much anyone. He cut Don Krieg's massive warship in half with a casual slash, and almost killed East Blue Zoro. Besides regular sword attacks, he can also launch enormous flying slashes strong enough to rival Whitebeard's Quake shockwaves. They were deadly enough to even have Jozu tank them for Whitebeard instead. During the time skip, Mihawk agreed to train Zoro, where he showed mastery of both armament and observation haki alongside pure sword skill. While he may not have the world-shaking presence of a Yonko like Kaido, in one-on-one sword combat, he sits at the very top. And considering that many of the strongest characters in the world use swords, that says a lot. Mihawk easily deserves the 10th place. Or does he? Shamrock. Figureland Shamrock is the new powerhouse Oda introduced us to during the Elbaf arc. Not only is he the new leader of the Holy Knights, but he's also Shanks' evil twin brother. Even though his getup's kinda goofy, he's no joke. With the kind of haki he's shown off so far, it's safe to say he's very close to his brother in terms of strength. So far, Shamrock has been shown wielding a sword named Cerberus, which can transform into a 3-headed beast. He's used this weapon to injure Loki with ease, showing extreme combat skill. Everything about his introduction, his rank as leader of the Holy Knights, his lineage, and his immediate threat level is meant to show he is not simply another strong character, but likely one of the final villains Luffy and the crew will have to take on. Oh, and another thing about Shamrock is that he is pretty much immortal, which means that he can't be defeated by regular attacks. This, combined with the fact that he is leader of the Holy Knights, makes it pretty clear that he deserves a high place on this list. Although Shamrock's true power is still mostly speculation, his brother, on the other hand, has already shown us what he's got. Shanks. Red-haired Shanks is currently one of the 4 Emperors of the Sea. Despite having only a few on-screen appearances, every moment we get with this guy is hype! He's easily one of the most influential, feared, and respected pirates in the entire story. And only recently have we started to get some information about who he really is. What we do know is that he is the son of Saint Figureland Garling, the former leader of the Holy Knights and one of the current 5 elders. After being saved by Dragon during the God Valley incident, Shanks was adopted by the Roger Pirates. As a child, he traveled the Grand Line with one of the most legendary crews in history and became an apprentice after he earned the trust of Roger himself. He was the one who inherited Roger's straw hat and later passed it down to Luffy. Over the years, he rose to Emperor status and built up quite a reputation for himself. The Marine admirals and even other emperors treat him like he's a tier above them. And that's for good reason, because this guy was able to paralyze a Marine admiral with his haki while being miles away. His observation haki is also one of the strongest in the series, as he can see multiple seconds into the future during combat. While other emperors like Blackbeard and Big Mom struggled against some of the supernovas, Shanks showed why he is better than them and destroyed Kid and his entire crew with a single attack. Off-screen, he also destroyed Bartolomeo's unbreakable barriers with his power and dueled on par with Mihawk for years. He even wound up stealing the Gomu Gomu no Mi from a world government ship full of Cypher Pole agents. All in all, it's clear that this guy is one of the strongest characters in the series. He might even deserve a higher place on the list, but before he gets into a direct fight with some of the other top tiers, I think 8th place seems about right for him. Whitebeard. Edward Newgate, better known as Whitebeard, was called the strongest man in the world for a reason. He was one of the very few pirates capable of matching Roger's strength blow for blow, with their fights often ending in a draw. He was also the captain of the most stable Emperor crew and the man who held the world's balance of power for decades after his rival's death. During Marineford, even while being sick, aged, and injured, the sheer power of this guy was still enough to make Akainu shake in his boots. But we're not here to talk about his old self, so let's see what this guy was capable of during his peak. As an orphan from Sphinx Island, Whitebeard grew up wishing for a family. He served briefly under 𝐷𝐸, but then built his own empire, gathering powerful allies like Marco, Jozu, and Ace. Unlike other emperors, he never had a goal of finding the One Piece. All he wanted to do was grow and protect his family. His feats speak for themselves. He wielded the 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵 no Mi, considered by everyone to be the strongest paramecia capable of creating quakes that could destroy entire islands. In his prime, he was Roger's equal. Every clash they had basically shook entire islands and parted the clouds in the sky. Just a casual swing with his weapon was powerful enough to level an entire area and cut a Holy Knight in half during the God Valley incident. Compared to characters below him like Kaido, Big Mom, or Shanks, Whitebeard is the only confirmed equal to Roger. Even Kaido himself called Whitebeard one of the few people who could possibly defeat him. And he was actually talking about the old and sick version of Whitebeard at the time. The mix of raw might, legacy, and willpower makes him one of the absolute top tier characters on this list. Garling. Introduced as the supreme commander of the Holy Knights, Garling is the head of the Celestial Dragon's fighting force. Ranked above even the Gorosei members themselves, he's a rare case of a noble who isn't weak, spoiled, or protected. He's without a doubt one of the most dangerous figures still active in the story. Decades ago, before the God Valley incident, Garling was likely the strongest Celestial Dragon around, and it was pretty much known that he was going to win every hunting tournament he participated in. He was also a figure that other Holy Knights truly feared. His sons, Shamrock and Shanks, are two of the most powerful characters in the story. And considering that they inherited most of that power from Garling, it's safe to say that this guy is stronger than them both. Although we still haven't seen what he's capable of, there's no denying that the hype is massive. Being Supreme Commander of the Holy Knights puts him above both CP0 and Admirals in terms of strength, and only reports to Imu directly. Now that he's been made a Gorosei member, there's no telling what kind of buffs he's received from Imu, which means that he might even be more terrifying than we think once he finally makes his move in the story. Only 5 more characters are left, and these 5 are on a completely different level compared to everyone else. Garp. Monkey D. Garp, the hero of the Marines, is the strongest Marine member ever, and it's not even close. He's not just another high-ranking officer. He's the man who stood toe-to-toe with the strongest pirates for decades and came out alive every time. Garp's backstory is a rare one among Marines. He rose through the ranks pretty early, purely through his combat ability. He was offered to become an admiral multiple times, but refused the promotions, not wanting to serve directly under celestial dragons. He also raised or mentored powerful fighters like Aokiji, Kobe, Luffy, and Ace. His feats are beyond legendary. He fought Roger countless times and earned his place as the Pirate King's equal. He was a key figure in the God Valley incident and single-handedly scared off 3 future emperors just by tanking a prime Big Mom's most devastating attack. Even though they had the numbers advantage, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and Shiki, while in their prime, were afraid of a drawn-out battle with Garp. And I mean, just take a second to actually understand this. Piece. All 4 of these characters weren't sure if they could defeat the Prime 𝐴RP on their own. It's ridiculous! Even in his old age, after getting significantly weaker, 𝐴RP was still strong enough to one-punch Marco during Marineford, and would even defeat 𝐂𝐮𝐼R𝐻 if Shiryu didn't intervene. The guy is a living example of peak power in the One Piece world and deserves the 5th place. Roger. Gol D. Roger, the Pirate King, is arguably the most famous name in the series and the man who kicked off the entire story. He was the only person in recorded history to discover the Grand Line's final island, Laugh Tale, and confirm the existence of the One Piece. Roger's backstory is more complete than most of the other characters on this list. Born in Loketown, he sailed with a crew of future legends like Rayleigh, Gaban, and Crocus. In fact, even his cabin boys wound up becoming future emperors, Shanks and Buggy. His feats cement him at the top tier. He fought Whitebeard to a standstill, traded blows with 𝐴RP multiple times, and sent Oden flying through dozens of trees with a single attack. Even sick and near death, his will was said to be unmatched, with Conqueror's haki strong enough to clash equally with literally anyone in the story. The most interesting thing is that Roger didn't even have a devil fruit and relied purely on his haki and skill during fights. He was also one of the few characters in the story who wielded a supreme grade blade, a sword called Ace. I don't think anything else needs to be said. The King of Pirates sits comfortably at 4th place. But even though Roger was considered a king, there was still one pirate he could never beat: 𝐿 D. 𝐶𝐵EK. 𝐿 D. 𝐶𝐵EK, aka Davy D. 𝐶𝐵EK, was the most feared pirate of all time. Before Roger grew to fame, the world was in the era of rocks. Known as the captain of the infamous Rocks Pirates, he managed to gather some of the world's strongest individuals under a single banner. This included monsters like Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and even Shiki. His ambition wasn't mere wealth or fame. He openly declared how he wanted to become king of the world. This made him the greatest direct threat to the world government ever. He was the only pirate brave enough to invade the Holy Land, where he attacked the celestial dragons directly and even threatened Imu in person after finding his secret garden. Oh, and did I mention that he also killed an admiral while he was there? Yeah, this guy was on another level. After these events, Rocks also tried to recruit the King of the Giants, Herald, to his cause, which threatened to completely reshape the balance of power in the world. However, he didn't manage to do it. After wreaking havoc on the world for years, Rock's reign finally came to an end after the God Valley incident 38 years ago, where his crew clashed with the likes of Garling, Roger, and 𝐴RP. Despite losing, the fact that it took the combined might of the future Pirate King and the hero of the Marines to bring him down shows how monstrous he was. After this incident, every mention of Rock's name was practically erased from history, so that people wouldn't be influenced by his sheer will. Imu. Sitting atop the empty throne, Imu secretly rules the world while the 𝐵𝑒 and other celestial dragons act as his direct subordinates. He is a single shadow monarch controlling everything from behind the curtain. Although not fully confirmed, Imu's full name is likely Erona Imu, and they have been alive since the Void Century. This is supported by the fact that Imu knew about Lily and recognized Joy Boy's haki, which are things only someone from back then would know about. And yeah, being alive for so long clearly means Imu is immortal, although we don't know exactly how they achieved it. Imu's feats so far are mostly indirect, but they're definitely terrifying. Casually wiping out entire islands like Lulusia means they likely have access to an ancient weapon or something similar. Not only that, Imu was shown killing Saint Saturn from miles away effortlessly. Imu also has the ability to possess other people, like he did with Gunko during recent chapters. While using this ability, Imu was able to show off their impressive haki through Gunko, which left most of the heavy hitters on Elbaf, like Luffy and Gaban, practically sweating through their clothes. While other people on this list are mostly regular humans, Imu is more of a devil-like entity and clearly stands above them all in terms of strength. This person is likely going to be Luffy's final villain at the end of the story, so he's bound to be stronger than anything else he's faced so far. While Imu may be the strongest living being in the story right now, there was once a guy who even Imu wouldn't dare to challenge. Joy Boy. Joy Boy is one of the most mysterious and mythical figures in the entire One Piece world. He wasn't just a regular pirate or marine, he was the first pirate to ever exist. Although we've never directly seen him, his legend shaped the modern era more than any other living pirate ever did. The name Joy Boy itself carries a promise, as he was the person who was prophesized to liberate the world. In terms of power scaling, Joy Boy sits at the very top tier. Even without on-panel feats, the scale of his influence and the fact that the world government has spent 800 years trying to erase him says everything about his strength. The return of Joy Boy through Luffy's Gear 5 has shown powers that defy logic. Cartoon-like freedom of movement, reality-warping strikes, and overwhelming haki. If the strength Luffy used to take down Kaido is even a fraction of what the original Joy Boy was capable of, then this places him at the very top of the list of strongest characters in One Piece. Not only was he the biggest threat to the 20 countries, but he was also commanding what we can assume was the largest army in the Blue Planet's history. An object like the rope knot he handed Emmett basically carried a burst of his haki for centuries, and it was strong enough to even knock back the members of the Gorosei. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone. Joy Boy obviously gets the first place on this list. Click on this video next, where I explained the 16 saddest backstories in One Piece. Come on, click it.